Hi, my name is Sarah Jenkins, and I am just doing a brief YouTube video here from Arizona. I actually am a clinician in private practice in Tempe and Scottsdale, Arizona. My practice is called Dragonfly International Therapy. So the reason I wanted to do this video is I have a few videos out there about working with trauma, even Equine-Assisted EMDR, which is a protocol I created for integrating equine therapy and EMDR. But the reason I wanted to do this one today is because over and over again in my probably now 13 years of doing EMDR, I find this one question comes up the most when people are calling me. You know, they've been referred by a therapist for EMDR, or maybe they've done some research on the internet about EMDR, and they want to know what is this EMDR stuff all about? You know, it sounds like a new therapy, it seems really strange, or, you know, I've done a lot of research on it and I know it's really well researched. You know, can you tell me how I should look into doing this? So lots of questions, but all of it kind of revolves around what is EMDR. So this brief little video is really to give you an initial starting place to answer that question. And hopefully no matter where you are in your healing journey, whether you're looking for a therapist, are a therapist, or just really want to know more about it in terms of being an educated consumer, then it'll give you a place to start. So one of the things that I love about EMDR, and I'll kind of tell you this, the end part, and then kind of go backwards to where it all started. What I love about EMDR, and this is, I've done EMDR myself as a former client and then also as a practitioner. What I love about it is the fact it's probably one of the most powerful ways of doing therapy that I've ever experienced and ever seen in my practice. And over again, if you meet with the EMDR therapists in your community, they'll probably tell you the same thing. It's awe-inspiring to see how people's lives change, to see how their bodies become less anxious, how they become more grounded, how literally the past, whatever it is in their past has contributed to how they feel now. Really, they experience this on a physiological level that it changes. So for example, we can do some, let's say, trauma-focused cognitive work, things like that, and it gets to a different part of the brain than EMDR does. EMDR gets to this limbic system, the part of our brain that is truly focused on, am I going to live? Am I going to die? And that's what its prime focus is. And so cognitive work really asks us to really look at our thoughts, which is really good work and really good. But the challenge is sometimes trauma doesn't respond to the verbal narrative. In fact, a lot of times we find that people's verbal narrative of the trauma doesn't come until the end, when they're really being able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So what changes for EMDR for clients that I hear is often they, for example, they'll walk into a situation that was maybe hugely triggering for them, and all of a sudden they go, that's really weird. I didn't react the way I usually do. That's really strange. So they start noticing that physiologically their responses are different. They're not just maybe walking themselves through a situation and talking them through the situation so they get triggered. The limbic system just reduces its triggers and goes, okay, well, that situation I don't need to give that person an alert for because it's over. Those triggers aren't necessary. So that's kind of what we can look at in terms of our end result, that the past becomes no longer present, that we're not just walking through our world feeling the past taking over. You know, trauma is really tricky though. You wouldn't necessarily think the trauma impacts everything, but the reality is it does. Trauma is really, think about it, things that have been disturbing in your life, and if you look at it from a developmental perspective, if you're a kid, it can be divorce. You know, if you're surviving war, it's war. If it's domestic violence you grew up in, it's a domestic violence. All of those different scenarios. So there's a wide range of things that are traumatic. But what happens with trauma is it gets stuck in our nervous system. It gets locked in there in the way it was at the time. So if I felt sad during a traumatic event, that sadness can get locked in. If I felt really hypervigilant, that can get locked in. If I feel like I'm at fault, I'm not good enough, or it's my fault, that can get locked in. And let's face it, that can build and build and build and neurologically become hardwired. So what EMDR does is I call it an emotional detox. It really helps clients to detox what they saw at the time, what they felt at the time, somatically in their body, the emotions they felt, the beliefs about themselves and the world, all those little fragments of the trauma that are locked in the nervous system. EMDR kind of reconfigures them. It's like a puzzle piece that gets moved back into a place where it doesn't create symptoms of anxiety, potentially depression, even PTSD. And so it really helps to rewire the brain. We don't necessarily know how, but we know that that's what happens, and that's really what's helping us find some really powerful treatment effects for people. So what I want you to think about with EMDR is make sure you find an EMDR therapist in your community that has been trained in EMDR and really understands what it is that you need to work on and has a comfort level in working with trauma if you're coming in working with trauma. Make sure that you find out why they're referring you for EMDR, if they're referring you out for it, and also what they think EMDR would be helpful to help you treat. There are a lot of great organizations out there. You can learn about EMDR by looking at the EMDRIA website. That organization really is a key place. It's a doorway to really learning additional things you need to know as a consumer of EMDR services. Recognize that EMDR is one of the most well-researched treatments for trauma and PTSD. And even though it might sound, with all the different 8 phases of EMDR, like it's unusual because it has this thing called bilateral stimulation, and I can probably do another video on that next time. But know that it really is an integrative model, that it integrates a lot of different ways of looking at trauma, and it really can help your nervous system release whatever it is that's holding you back. Again, make sure that you talk to your therapist, see if you're appropriate for EMDR and if EMDR is appropriate for you, and make sure to do some more research on the net out there. My website, if you want some more information about my practice and also about EMDR in general, is www.dragonflyinternationaltherapy.com. And again, my name is Sarah Jenkins. Thanks so much for your time, and I truly hope that this video has helped you along your healing journey, and I certainly hope that you'll discover EMDR for yourself.